If I could ask you to switch off your phones, because the conversation we are going to start is going to be far more interesting than any news that you will read or that you will hear on the phone. So thank you very much for being with us at this session of the Commonwealth Business and Women Forum dedicated to diversity, women's economic empowerment through international trade. My name is Arantxa González and I'm the Executive Director of the International Trade Center, and we have an amazing group of panelists here that are going to unpick this issue of women in international trade. Over the last 3 decades, trade has played an incredible role in lifting billions out of poverty. Business internationalizing and participating in global trade has proven to be a very effective means to drive broader economic transformation, to generate economic opportunities, to improve productivity, to foster innovation, to generate profit, but also better incomes for individuals. And yet, the gains of trade opening have not been evenly spread. And this is the case in particular between men and women. In many cases, trade has perpetuated and even exacerbated existing gender inequalities and discrimination. We know that equality is good for the economy. We know that equality is good for businesses in that they get better return, better performance. We know that equality is good for families and communities. And yet, when we look at the figures, only 1 in 5 exporting companies is a woman-owned business, despite the fact that almost half of businesses around the world are owned or managed by women. So is it that women have chosen not to be part of international trade, or is it that there are specific obstacles to their participation in international trade? It seems to be rather the latter, with discriminations remaining in the law, discriminations remaining in practice, discriminations in access to finance, in access to networks, and obviously the disproportionate burden of non-paid economic activities on women. This is why SHETRADES was initiated. It's about making sure trade comes with adjectives. It's not just about the quantity of trade, it's about the quality of trade. It's about the inclusiveness of international trade. This is why we have worked with many in this room, and you will discover this in a minute, to put women and trade in the agenda of the World Trade Organization. And this is why we're extremely proud that the Commonwealth is now putting women and trade, SHETRADES, on its agenda. And I want to particularly thank the UK government, Prime Minister Theresa May, and in a minute, Harriet Baldwin, for the support they've given to this initiative. We're going to watch shortly a very short video, and then I'm going to give the keynote speech to Harriet Baldwin, that in this room needs no introduction, but never mind, I'm going to do that. She's the Minister of State for International Development, Minister of State for Africa in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and she will be delivering her remarks. Before that, a short video.
My name is Marie-Laetitia Kaitesire. I am a coffee farmer. This is my farm.
My name is Nyango Mpinga. I'm from Nairobi. I'm a fashion designer.
My name is SANTANA MONDA, and I am the CEO and founder of House of Sahara, a bespoke custom-making furniture company.
My name is Adegbola. I'm Anglo-Nigerian, and I'm a fashion accessories designer.
My name is Maureen OBAWEYA. I'm the Creative Director and CEO of Maureen Leatherworks.
Hello, my name is Sonia Mugabo and I'm a random fashion designer.
I'm Chesa McConan. I'm CEO and Creative Director of Aphrodisiac Worldwide, a clothing manufacturing company based in Ghana.
So I sell all over the place, obviously in Africa, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, Europe, Italy, France, the United Kingdom, Germany.
And I've met different buyers from Japan, from Europe, so it definitely has opened more doors for me.
It will definitely tell the world that made in Africa, made in Kenya is actually of good quality and of course beautiful.
Also be able to supply products to people in Ghana and the Ghanaian market has been tremendously something that I'm proud of.
Global acceptance, not just the local acceptance, is very critical to us. So in getting our goods to be at par with international brands, it's been quite an uphill task doing it out of Nigeria.
My advice for women entrepreneurs is to be committed, to think big, to like what you do.
Have a vision of what you want to do, be passionate about it, be hardworking, be innovative.
So it's my passion. Passion made me do it.
Collaboration with the ITC was very, very good, very good. It opened me eyes, opened mind.
SHETRADES is an amazing opportunity to grow your business. It's also an amazing opportunity for you to interact with other business owners, but most importantly, it gives you an opportunity to learn.
Harriet, please. The floor is yours. Well, wasn't that fantastic, Arantxa? Really, really inspiring film. And what an inspiring audience. And I just feel so privileged to be here on behalf of the UK government to say welcome to Super Tuesday of Commonwealth Heads of Government Meeting Week. And what a great theme. I mean, international trade, absolutely enormous potential to drive growth, to drive prosperity, to drive development, to open up new employment opportunities, to raise incomes, to provide better livelihoods for the world's poorest, especially the women. And as we heard in Arantxa's opening remarks, women's access to markets and economic opportunities is absolutely essential if we're to transform economies and ensure that growth delivers for everyone. And that's why we're proud to put women and girls at the heart of all of our economic development work, and why we remain committed to delivering safer, more secure and higher return work for women. I'm going to give you a few examples. In Nigeria and Tanzania, addressing one of the many barriers that women must overcome to trade, we have supported over 500,000 women to access suitable financial services, including financial education, savings accounts, and credit. And women in these countries face many of the same challenges as women working around the world, juggling household work alongside running a small business. And as such, women are often unable to find time to safely deposit the money that they've made and that they need to grow their business and to reinvest. And so a tailored savings service, visiting women at their place of business to conduct daily transactions, has really helped many, many women overcome this. But we realise that there is much more to do. So we're building on the important initiatives such as the landmark Buenos Aires Declaration on Trade and Women's Economic Empowerment. And we believe that it's time for us, as the Commonwealth, to take further concrete action to ensure that women are able to benefit equally from the opportunities that trade brings. By working together rather than in isolation, that's how we'll make progress. And that's why I'm so proud that our Prime Minister yesterday announced that the International Trade Centre, with UK support, will launch SHETRADES Commonwealth, a new programme offering the tools, information and data needed to help Commonwealth countries do just that, make progress. Woo! So over the next 2 years, we'll develop the innovative global outlook on trade and gender, and that will compile the all-important data needed for member governments to understand how we can improve those opportunities for women, and it'll track the progress over time. The programme will offer targeted support in a number of Commonwealth countries where women still face disproportionate barriers to trade, and there's significant unrealised potential for women-owned businesses, which tend to be smaller in terms of sales, assets and profits than their male-owned equivalents. And SHETRADES Commonwealth will work with both women entrepreneurs and the business organisations that they look to for help to ensure lasting and sustainable change. And this new UK funding will improve competitiveness of another 2,500 female entrepreneurs to add to the list that we already see, connecting them to international markets and investment opportunities. And it'll work with the private sector in large firms to help overcome some of the further barriers. And so that's why I'm really pleased to hear that Unilever is going to be represented on today's panel. But we must be careful not to pigeonhole this as just a developing country issue. We all have a responsibility to ensure that our trade spreads right across the world. And that's why we're working with colleagues in the UK Department for International Trade to support the development of an ambitious, inclusive approach to future UK trade. We'll translate this commitment through gender-responsive future trade policy, and we look forward to working with many of you to share our learning and our expertise, because it's down to us, as members of the Commonwealth, to step up together. We must work collectively, we must position ourselves at the forefront of driving action, and we must empower women to trade more around the world. So with such an amazing panel of experts, Arantxa, and the passion that we've already heard and the passion of the panel you're about to hear from, I know that this afternoon's discussion is going to offer very, very rich insight into how the Commonwealth, how governments and how the private sector can translate the energy, the ambition that we've seen on the screen and in the room today into action. Thank you very much, Arantxa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. All right. So we are going to now hear from those that matter. We've got a great panel. It's a panel made of men and women from the north and the south, from the east and the west, and with business, because at the end of the day, this is about international trade. Let me call on the stage Marie-Claude Biveau, who is the Minister of Development and La Francophonie from Canada. Marie-Claude. Let me call on the stage Kamina Johnson-Smith, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Jamaica. Let me call on stage Isatou Touré, Minister of Trade and Regional Integration, The Gambia. Let me call on stage the man in the panel, Olusegun Awololo, the CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Because it's also about men. This is not just a discussion about women for women with women. Let me also call Rebecca Marmot. She is the Vice President, Global Partnerships and Advocacy, Unilever. And last but not least, Farhana Rahman. She's an amazing entrepreneur, Chairman and CEO of UI Systems Limited, Bangladesh. Farhana, welcome. Without further ado, let me just first interrogate a little bit the panel, try to tease a bit of messages from them, and then obviously we will have a short time at the end for comments, questions, observations from you in the audience. Marie-Claude, Canada has a feminist development policy. Mm-hmm. What does it mean? And how Canada sees the integration, the use of this tool to integrate more women to international trade?
Thank you. Yes, after a very important consultation in 65 countries, we have decided to put women at the heart of our new international assistance policy and to call it the feminist policy. Because, I mean, it's more than values. It has been demonstrated, as you both said, that we know that economy is good for everyone. It's not only good for men, it's good for the whole community. So the idea behind this policy is really, if we empower women, it's the best way. We strongly believe that it's the best way to end poverty, to end inequalities. So we know that if we want to help women of tomorrow to be able to trade and to thrive, we have to support adolescents today. So there's a big emphasis on adolescent girls throughout this policy, because we believe that these teenagers today need to be supported to go to school and not get married at 12 and pregnant at 13. If we want them to be strong women, educated women, and be able to make their own choices and have a place at any decision table. So this is why we are preparing the future of these women. We are also having different specific initiatives to support women today. So the initiative, which we called Voice in Leadership, is designed to support local women's organizations, civil society organization led by women to defend their rights. And among these rights, obviously, we're thinking about ending child and early forced marriage, but we are also thinking about having access to finance, having the right to own a property, and all these rights that local organizations might be fighting for. We want to be there to support them. We also want to work with local government in terms of good governance, inclusive governance, making sure that they design policies, laws, programs that will take into consideration women groups as well. So making sure that they listen to them and they have access to any services or program that might. So the idea is to get both the government and the grassroots organization connect to really allow women and girls to develop their full potential and contribute fully to the economy.
Great. So what we have heard is essentially Canada looks at it from a value chain perspective, and the value chain starts when these women, future women entrepreneurs, are small girls. They can go to school, they can get the training and move into the activities where they would thrive tomorrow. I think this is very interesting. One thinks that there are many jobs of the future where the market is not naturally driving girls to these sectors. That would be the economy of the future. Thank you for that. Camina, what does women in trade mean for a country in the Caribbean?
As a small island developing state and as a small and open economy, we can't grow without trade, fundamentally. And when you put that in the context that Jamaica is a country where we have close to 40% of households headed by single women, and you speak about financial inclusion and inclusive policies, you understand that it's a real issue, that including more women in the formal economy must positively impact trade. The studies all say it, but you can understand quite clearly when you hear numbers like that. Fact is that we have an interesting dichotomy in Jamaica. We have more women in the labor force than men. But for maybe the last couple of decades, female unemployment has been almost double male unemployment for some period of time. This is something we're trying to look more closely at. We're trying to change the dynamic, and we're pleased to say that from in the financial year 2016 to 2017, 70% of new jobs created were taken up by women. So we know that positive things are happening. Looking at including more women in trade provides another avenue for entrepreneurship, where there's room for more flexibility, where the formal employment structure perhaps does not accommodate the schedule that single parents have. And there's every attempt now by the government to develop the infrastructure that will support that. In fact, the Caribbean Export Development Agency, CEDA, has just launched its We Export program. And as at last week, when they cut off applications, we had 21 Jamaican companies participating in it in phase 1. And this is a project that is intended to ensure that businesses that are at least 51% owned by women are able to learn about business development, learn about trade, learn about how it is that they can grow their business, stable financing practices, the things that you need to know to run a business. a very hands-on project. So we're very excited about it, and I hope the next time we meet, I'm telling you all the great successes that came out of it.
So this is an invitation for the next session to report on results. You bring the point of the female entrepreneurship. Obviously, the theme of women and trade has different dimensions. There is the dimension of women in the labor force. There is the dimension of women entrepreneurship that, as you say, helps with this constraint that exists today of women having less time for remunerated activities. Yes. Let me go to Isatu, a force of nature in a country that is very much has amazing amount of women, many with a very big specificity. Many are in the rural sector, in the agriculture rural sector. Isatu, what are the opportunities and the challenges that you see for Gambian women to benefit from trade?
Thank you very much. There are many opportunities in the Gambia for women within the economy, beneficial for women through trade. If you look at it, 63% of the MSMEs are micro-enterprises, and 90% of the micro-enterprises are informal, with 80% comprising of women in the Gambia who are involved in distributive trade, gardening, and other handicrafts and artisanal trade. They therefore actively participate in a number of key sectors of the economy, including agriculture, fisheries, agro-processing, and domestic and cross-border trade. There are challenges that they face for the fact that access to land, the fact that they are constituting almost about 80% of agricultural labor force. They are also having challenges to land. They have user rights, but not ownership rights. And once those products are translated or the value is added, you see claim over those land, and systematically they lose. You also have the lack of access to funds to be able to engage in mechanized farming, to add value to their processes, and I think that is a challenge that needs to be addressed if we're thinking about women engaging in this in the economy, and to also let them sustain the work that they are doing. What is most important is that we have to realize that rural women constitute a lot within the economy, but what they contribute is taken for granted. We forgot that they are actually the real suppliers of most of the commodities, most of everything that it goes to the industries, and therefore we do not give them the opportunity to self-actualize, and that is a big opportunity we are losing in terms of money, in terms of industry, in terms of moving over there to sustain the economy. The women have demonstrated the possibility of that by the fact that they have contributed to providing the raw materials. But once the value addition starts, that gap begins to come. They do not surface anymore, or a little is given to them. So what we have been doing in terms of addressing the challenges is to have policy reviews coming out from a context of dictatorship. And now we've opened a chapter of democracy. And we said women have to play a central role in capturing where they have added advantage in the area of agriculture, agribusiness, in order to contribute and own what they work for within the economy. We are providing trade policies. The entrepreneurship policy is very much gender responsive, and we're considering some of the challenges that they are facing. We try to include ICT, because to do e-commerce, you need to develop their capacity for ideas. They don't have to be generous to do that. All they need is to understand the mechanism. They can use the telephones, they can use the internet, because if they have access to them and they are trained, they can do it. Yeah. They can also communicate among themselves within and outside the country. That's very key. The other thing that we've been doing is that there's this she-trade phenomenon that the ITC has been talking about and introduced, and the Gambia is trying to be a champion of that too, working closely with the ITC. We hope to launch it very soon, and we look forward to it. And there is need to support that initiative all across the continent, or beyond our continent, to ensure that the contributions that women make are, it is not something that is new. I believe they have been doing it. It is not being recognized. It's the recognition and the valuation and validation of the work that they do. That is why they are behind. And this is affected by cultural practices and our tradition. Where is the position of the woman when it comes to economics, when it comes to development? In the care economy, we all know that they are there, but is it paid? No. Now, when it comes to the macroeconomic issues, when it comes to other economic issues, how do we get back to capture that comparative advantage they have by including them into packages. And here that's where I feel feminist philanthropy, feminist support and approaches should be involved for us to bring that, because it is not a new phenomenon. The issue has been there. And therefore, all that we need is to capture it, is to enhance it, is to own it and leverage it. And I think the SHETRADES phenomenon is a hope for me in my country to see that we move together. We need the resources that should be leveraged to help the rural woman. There are different levels of economic activities, and we have to be innovative. We have to be creative in our approaches and use the feminist strategies to bring in on board the women, working closely, of course, with our male counterparts who care. Thank you.
So,
Those who care.
so you now understood why I said she was a force. She was a real force and a driving force in the country. Segun, why is it important for Commonwealth members like Nigeria to embrace this concept of an inclusive trade agenda?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Aaron. So let me just start by thanking the Commonwealth Women's Forum for this, and the ITC for organizing this. And let me also put on record that I'm going to agree with everything. For us in Nigeria, really, it was a no-brainer. We faced a recession, economy collapsed due to falling oil prices, mainly because we enjoyed oil trading $110, and then it suddenly went as low as $20. And for us, it was a wake-up, a shake-up call. And but we looked at our economy, and the Nigerian economy at that time was, our GDP was driven by 9% oil, which was a surprise because we thought oil was driving our GDP, and then 27% agriculture, and then 56% services, financial services, Nollywood, telecommunication services, everything was driving our GDP. So we looked at it and we said, look, what the economy is telling you is that I'm already diversified. But 90% of our earnings, foreign exchange earnings, was from oil. So that's why we became flat broke. So we in the NEPC put up a policy, what we call zero oil. And the idea is that Nigeria must survive in a world where she no longer sells oil. Now, it's a tall order, but it was what we really had to face as part of the diversification process for our country. We put up about 22 sectors on which we say Nigeria can earn foreign exchange without oil. And there were category A, category B. Category A, of course, petrochemicals, big ones. But category B programs, which were, according to our calculation and using the ITC trade tools maps, are trading below $50 billion worldwide. So we looked at them. You see cashew, sesame, spices, ginger, shea butter, cowpea, cassava, tomato. The minute I'm saying it, you know that these are all women doing this. These are all women entrepreneurs, women farmers, you know, working and doing this. So we knew we really had to connect to an international platform. We had our Women in Export group, which is we identified women doing export and we'll try and support them. And then the SHETRADES thing came following the meeting in Sao Paulo, and we immediately lashed onto it because we knew that that was the way we could open the eyes of our women to the possibilities that exist outside Nigeria. And when you want to become a global economy, if you resist your business, this is what we tell the women, don't resist your business to where you can make market. When you looked at the video that played, I was very happy. There were Nigerian entrepreneurs on that, and many of them are our exporters. So like my dear sister said from Gambia, the women are really the bastion of, of trade. Women generally trade. And when you can now connect them to that platform, it's amazing. The only growth we had in our economy this year, 2017, was in agricultural products and non-oil exports. That was the only growth we found in our economy. And this is thanks to the women. So for us, it's really a no-brainer. We jumped onto it. Our women are really happy about this, that they can connect. And when you look at the Commonwealth 10 policy priorities, the number five of it is expand women's participation in trade. So I'm so happy that the Commonwealth has now joined into this, but we tell the Commonwealth they come after Nigeria. We went into it first. So my foreign minister from Jamaica, UQB in Nigeria. So we're really happy to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Segun. Rebecca, Unilever is a company that has embraced the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 5, empowering women and girls. Why is a multinational company like Unilever doing that? What's in it for you?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I always feel on these panels, I'm sort of the private sector person. So it's such an honour to be in a room of people from government and from the NGO world. So thank you for letting business have a voice. And I think on that point, we were very lucky in the run-up to the Sustainable Development Goals that Paul Polman was asked by Ban Ki-moon, who was SG at the time, to look at how business could play a more contributory role towards the Sustainable Development Goals and really build on the successes of the Millennium Development Goals, but seeing how business could be involved. And I think all the SDGs are important, but of course SDG 5, and particularly here today with all the stakeholders in this room, really does underpin so many of the others, whether it's around trade, whether it's around ending poverty, building healthier societies, etc. So I think for us it really falls into three big areas. I think the economic and social case is the first area, and you've heard from some of the rest of the panel, the social implications of ensuring that women are much more included in the formal economy, and various reports over the past year or so from the World Economic Forum, from people like IFC, have shown that when you include women in the formal economy, they reinvest about 90% of that back into social areas, on education, on their children, as opposed to an average for men, not all men, which is, you are the exception, which is at around 30 to 40%. So of course investing in those social areas evidently is the sensible and right thing to do. And I think economically as well, when you look at including women in the formal workforce and economic parity, it's been estimated by McKinsey that will contribute $28 trillion into the global economy by 2025. So it's a no-brainer as far as we're concerned. And then I think that the second area really is thinking about, from a Unilever perspective, the business case, which in itself is a really actually silly thing to say, because it suggests that there's a business case for not investing in women, which obviously there isn't. But we know that women control, at the moment, 64% of all consumer spending. They're the vast majority of Unilever's consumers at the moment. And so clearly, serving the market that is most important to us, of course, makes complete and utter sense. So what we did at Unilever was look at, really, this as not only an opportunity, but a big responsibility. And we're the second largest advertiser in the world. A third of the planet use our products every day. So I think what we've got the opportunity to do, if we do it in the right way, is to really try and shift the agenda on women at a macro level, really reaching out to the mass market. So when you look at the HLP report that came out in 2015 and those 7 key findings around how we, the world, the global community, could make a contribution to women's economic empowerment, there were 2 that hugely resonated with us as a company. The first around lessening the burden of unpaid care, and again, the panel have talked about this already today, but whether you are a working woman in London or whether you are a rural housewife living in the countryside in Nigeria, Bangladesh, actually, and again, not a grumble at all, men, but women tend to bear the burden of domestic labour, doing the housework, looking after kids at the same time as trying to pursue a career. So as a company that provides consumer goods to communities around the world, there's an awful lot that we've done changing the way that we provide our products and services to really lessen that burden. And I think the other big area that we've really focused on is what we can do around mass market transformational change. Again, thinking of the HLP report, the contribution to normative change in a society, which isn't something that happens overnight. And it's something that takes time to change stereotypes and to change the way that women and men are portrayed in society. So what we set out to do with UN Women and a number of others in the private sector was to contribute or make a big commitment to unstereotyping the way that our advertising is done. So looking at how do we portray women and men in advertising and really commit as across the private sector and with government as well to changing that, because I think it makes a vital difference, particularly to young girls and boys growing up now, in how they see those gender stereotypes being portrayed. Then outside of that, there's an awful lot that we've done through our brands, through brands like Dove and the work of the Dove Self-Esteem Fund, looking at really imparting in young girls and young boys the kind of life skills that will enable them and empower them to really approach life in a different way and from the get-go see the opportunities that are open to them, working with organisations like UNICEF on education and access to education for girls and boys, making sure we do a lot of work, for example, on sanitation, really lobbying very hard on things like separate sex toilets in schools, which, as many of you know, is a hugely impactful reason why many girls drop out of going to school once they reach puberty, when the separate sex toilets aren't even there. So I think a whole multitude of different areas, and you can tell I feel very passionately about it. But I think that the last point is to say we know that we can't do that on our own. So actually it's only through partnerships with government and with civil society and with the NGOs and through things like the SHETRADES initiative that we can really achieve the targets that we feel are within our reach.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. You're drawing... You're driving home the complex nature of this issue. There is no single button that we can press to solve this, this question, but rather a multitude of actions that we need to undertake, all of them in sync, if possible, in order to address it. Farhana, you know, we've been talking a lot about how much trade empowers, but you are an example of that. Since you're an entrepreneur, you trade every day. So what has trade meant for you, and what kind of challenges have you faced as an entrepreneur?
First of all, let me thank the organizer to invite me to share my experience as a women entrepreneur from developing country. International trade, I have involved to this for last 15 years. Initially, I have started doing IT product and services for local market. 15 years back, it was nothing in Bangladesh compared to today. When a woman is doing ICT business, globally women's presence in ICT sector is very limited, as we know. So at that time, even today, women business is not taken as a serious venture in Bangladesh perspective. So when I involved myself to the international trade, and actually that mindset pushed me to join international trade. So that was a game changer for my case, because when I started international business, at that time, I have secured my businesses, and also I found that they don't judge me as a woman. That field was an equal field for me. They consider whether I can deliver, whether I can understand their requirement. So joining international trade was really the game changer for myself. And when I was delivering to my international clients, at that point of time, I found that my local clients are also very interested to take services from my company, because they have seen that how my company is delivering to international clients, and that creates a lot of local jobs for my companies as well. I joined, at that time I joined Bangladesh Association of Software and Information Services, that is the National Trade Association for Software. And I ran an election because at that time I gained a lot of confidence of my industry colleagues as well. And when I ran election on that trade body, and I elected as the first director of Bangladesh Association of Software and Information Services, and that actually created a lot of impact in my business as well, because we had women entrepreneurs at that time, but no one on the trade body. So that was an impact as well. And after that, actually, the most significant one, which I must mention, when I went to the trade body and I am running a business which give confidence to other women as well. They came forward and they wanted to know about what I do, what actually the thing I'm doing, and how they can engage themselves to this business. So, and that impact, I'm talking about 15 years back. If I look at our country's situation right now, then a lot of women are interested to do business in ICT because they have seen a lot of success here, and a lot of women who are encouraging their daughters to join ICT industry. So I think these are the impacts I got. But challenges, yes, challenges are there, and like access to finance is one of the challenges. Still, I am facing it. Access to market, that is another challenge, which actually our women always face. It's actually for everyone, access to market from Bangladesh, because Bangladesh branding is one of the issue. And ICT, as I am working in ICT industry, our industry branding is also an issue. So besides this, country branding and retention of employees, I must mention this, because when my company started working internationally, then we hired people. But after 6 to 10 months, we start losing them, because they are getting better jobs locally and internationally. So I'm happy for them, but besides that, my company used to hire new people. Retention of employees is a challenge for me as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you've told us about a very important aspect, which is the value of leadership and how much leadership can mean for others to follow suit. We're going to have a second round of questions with short answers on their side, so that we have a bit of time for you to also put your questions forward. I'm going to go first with Marie-Claude, because I know you've got something else happening across the road, a ministerial meeting, and we really value your presence and your comments. Canada has a progressive trade policy, and I know how much this means. It's not just words, because I know how instrumental Canada was in getting through the World Trade Organization Ministerial Declaration on Women and Trade. But how are you making sure that you support others in translating this on the ground?
Well, I think with my colleague, Minister Champagne, who's the International Trade Minister, as you said, is pushing really the discussion on any international trade accord, entente, agreement is really pushing this conversation, and we were very proud to sign our first international trade agreement with Chile, having a gender chapter into it, and our objective is to always have gender chapter in all our commercial agreements. So this is one way that we want to push the agenda. We are also supporting the WeFi initiative with the World Bank, which is really a fund dedicated to support women entrepreneurs around the world, in developing countries mainly. So with a starting amount from diverse countries participating into this fund, $200 million, we reached $1 billion to support women entrepreneurs, so this is one thing. And we also launched recently our DFI, Development Finance Institution, that we call the FinDev, and we made sure that as part of the mandate of this new institution, everything related to women economic empowerment was a very important focus for this new financing organization. So this is one way to walk the talk and ensure that we will be financing businesses that will put women, we will make sure that women are part of these business deal and that they really benefit from this new money for investment.
Let me tell you that they've been so good at putting gender in trade agreements that now others, including the European Union, is following what Canada did. So that's what you call walking the talk. Well done. Kamina, please, can you share with us some specific initiatives that you're driving in Jamaica to ensure more women are connected to trade?
Okay. Last year, we passed, cabinet approved, and we are in the process of implementing or developing the action plan for our national foreign trade policy and action plan 2017 to 2022. And this is geared at making sure we have the institutional framework set to make trade work. And we have mainstream gender as part of that policy. This is expected to work together with our national policy on gender equality, which is also geared at ensuring that gender is mainstreamed across government.
Oh, yeah.
Because, outside. It is important that all of the levers are being pulled. The truth is, when I spoke about Jamaica being, a bit of a dichotomy, and I spoke about the disproportionate number of households headed by single women, fact is we also have the highest percentage of women managers per capita globally. So we have a large number of professional women and of highly educated women who can be easily transitioned into, not easily, but supported in the transition into entrepreneurship, into trade, given the right support. We know that we've had encouraging signals. For example, recently a window was opened by a financial institution for small business loans, and 70% of the loans that were taken up were by women. So we know that they are entering the market, they are seeking to self-actualize and to take the opportunity to explore economic empowerment. And we are really thinking that together with tapping into the new Commonwealth SHETRADES program, as part of the Commonwealth, which is on my list, to say exactly how can we tap into this to build our technical capacity and to ensure that we are doing everything that we can do to get more women trading. So.
Great examples, and you've touched upon an area that Marie-Claude also touched upon, which is access to finance, and which a number of you have touched upon, which is getting access to credit and capital necessary to move from being in the informal to the formal sector, and from being small to growing your business. Thanks a lot. Isatu, I think, what's interesting about the Commonwealth is that everybody can learn from everybody. The good examples that good practices are everywhere. So tell us about what you think are good practices in Gambia that others could emulate within the Commonwealth family.
Thank you very much. I think the Gambia emerging, as I said, from a difficult context, and also realizing the fact that we are trying to rebuild our economy, we're trying to rebrand the Gambia. We have to take on board quite a number of things right from the beginning. Not that it is the beginning, but then that's a new phase of our democracy. And if we're talking about the new phase of the democracy of the Gambia, taking on board gender considerations is very key. Some of the challenges, the inequalities that had happened can be addressed as we develop our policies, and that is something that we have taken on board. We're looking at our National Development Plan, and within the National Development Plan, we have taken up gender-responsive programming, planning, and actually implementation and setting up targets. The other thing that we try to do is that we know that lack of access to funding for women is a challenge. And given the high cost of borrowing, the interest rates that are very high at 25%, and lack of appropriate technologies and packaging also limit women's participation in value chains in the agriculture, fisheries, and agro-processing sectors to enhance their participation in regional and international trade. So what we've been doing is to look at, there is a whole synergy, not only from the Ministry of Trade, which I head, but also within the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and other related institutions in which we want to actually engender, for them to apply their lens, to put up critical gender analysis within the framework of their tools, so that when we talk about value addition, when we talk about engaging women and addressing the gender gap in the economy, we will all start on the same footing, and that's a good practice. We also try to build the capacity of the rural women and women in general to be able to engage in ICT. We have this SHETRADES that we are looking up to, and I really want to urge those that are there to support this initiative to ensure that we are able to reach out, get the adequate resources that is necessary, the technical capacity as it's necessary. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. You need the technical capacity. You need money, of course, matters, and also the innovative approaches in reaching out to those women and young people to be able to create the critical mass who are going to look or be the masses, the critical mass for our economies to move on. So we're looking at it both from a programmatic point of view, looking at the policies at that level, at the macro level, looking at the political will is also there, where there is this commitment to say we have almost 65% of our population being young and almost 75% of the women who are facing inequalities, and that we have to address it. So that political commitment is there. The institutional readiness should be there. We must also be ready to ensure that we are inclusive to respond to the 2030-2063 agenda for development, where women play a critical part, and not to come back again sitting on such places to talk about the gaps that do exist. I think, for me, we need to move forward. We need to really push, and the best practice is to make sure that we see both women and men on equal footing, but definitely there are inequalities, and we must be committed in all our individual ways to make sure that in our various entities, we address those gaps, because women constitute about 51% of our populations all over the world. We have been talking about the contributions that they have been doing, and when things fail, we fall back onto them. This is what my experience have shown me. So it's better to strengthen them so that they take up a leadership role in what they have been best at doing. Thank you.
I'm going to jump Segun. I'm going to leave Segun last. I want to go to Rebecca now. And I want, Rebecca, you mentioned, at the end of the day, Unilever is a business. And you mentioned the important role that business can play in connecting more women to trade. What are you doing to do that in your supply chain, in the hardcore of your business?
I was going to say we're like the government of Canada, but that would be stretching it. But we try to also take put a gender lens on our approach to our value chain as well. So right the way through from the farmers at one side and the sourcing, through to our own operations and ensuring that we have equal opportunities there, through to the brands that I was talking about before in the social mission, how we portray women and the services that we provide for women, and then finally on distribution at the other end of the supply chain, so getting those products out. So if I just take the core value chain areas, thinking about agriculture, for example, and something that's been touched on by a number of the panelists today, the way that we approach our suppliers and working with our suppliers is we look at what are the barriers to productivity for the farmers. How do we enable them to grow more products, or to grow more better quality crops, higher yields, etc. What is it? Is it technical assistance that they need? Is it financial inclusion? And particularly when you put a gender lens on it, you come out with some very interesting insights. So for example, we know in some of the countries where we're operating, sadly, there is still an issue around violence against women. So we've been working with people like UN Women to look at safety and training programs running, for example, in the tea estates that we have in West Africa and also in India, targeted at both the men and at the women, because we try to be very inclusive. It's not about alienating the men in our supply chain, but bringing them on board and encouraging them. So for example, now in our tea supply chains, all the team leaders are actually women, which was quite a big change and culturally perhaps something that wasn't standard practice in many of the countries. But I think those are the kind of important changes that we can make. Then I think working directly with the farmers, we've set up quite a few innovative, and again we've heard around access to capital, innovative financing approaches in our supply chain. So we have an Enhancing Livelihoods Fund that we set up with Oxfam and the Ford Foundation, where we work with our suppliers and we ask them to come to us with their problems, particularly focused around gender, to look at how together we can come up with a solution that will enable the women farmers to be much more productive. So for example, we've just finished a program in India with a gherkin supplier that we have called Maureen, where we developed mobile content for the women farmers, again, always portraying the women as the decision makers, as the leaders, but of course also talking about technical assistance that they might need, thinking about perhaps different crops, different yield varieties, etc. And we've seen now a 30% increase in yields and quality and income for the farmers in that particular supply chain. So very much putting together the cultural and the economic business case. I think at the other end of the supply chain, thinking about distribution and how do we get our products and services out, particularly in rural areas, and many of the Commonwealth countries as well. We've looked, I think, at two really big programs that we're now rolling out globally. One is around last mile distribution and how do we train up local women to become our sales agents. So we've done that we started initially in India with 100,000 women. We've recently expanded it into Nigeria, across many of the African markets now, looking at training up the women in the basic skills around bookkeeping, around accounting, around sales, and also the important health messages around washing your hands, cleaning your teeth, practicing good sanitation. So it's very much a win-win model for us. It expands, of course, our distribution network, and at the same time it provides employment opportunities. And I think particularly on financial inclusion, which a number of people have talked about today, we're doing a lot of work in Kenya on access to financial inclusion products for our small-scale retailers. So many of our small-scale retailers around the world, over 70%, are women. So working together with MasterCard, we've come up with specific women's focused financial inclusion services that are enabling them to get credit from a formal organised process, as opposed to perhaps the informal processes that might previously have existed that weren't always the safest for women, enabling them to now grow their business. So we've seen huge opportunities for us from a business perspective. And again, of course, for those female-led businesses, and many of the panel have talked about the number of businesses that are female-led, we've seen huge advances. And then I think just lastly, really making sure that when we're investing in new programs and new big partnerships, that they always have a gender lens on them. We launched a big partnership with DFID 2 years ago when the SDGs were launched, called Transform, which brings together Unilever and DFID initially, and now we've brought on board MasterCard, Vodafone, Microsoft, to look at how we can invest not just funding, but actually resources and expertise into small-scale enterprises, many of which are based in the Commonwealth countries, but other countries in Africa and Asia too, to invest in those small-scale enterprises where there is a direct link into our Unilever value chain, but at the same time are also very prosperous for the local economy. So would love, again, to work on many more of these projects. So I'm sure there are people in the room that have got lots of good ideas, so I would love to hear from you all.
So it sounds as if Rebecca and Unilever would be great partners for SHETRADES, and this is an invitation not only to her, but to all of you representing businesses in the audience to rush to register in this collaborative effort. Farhana, what are key factors that led to your success, and one action that you would encourage the Commonwealth Commonwealth governments to focus on to unlock trade opportunities for women?
Bangladesh has been an icon in women empowerment. Our Prime Minister, opposition leader, and the Speaker of our national parliament, all are women. But in my country, women are traditionally considered good for homemaking, If they consider career, then teaching is a very popular job, and doctor, some welfare type of services. This kind of job actually women considered when they think of their career. In my case, from my childhood, I have done a lot of businesses. Because all the time, unusual things attracts me. Unusual thing means when I was in school, even then I thought of different kind of trades. So from that that thing, I think when I have seen ICT, I found it very creative, and also why I liked it because I can see results, what I am thinking, the results very fast. In no time, I can see the result. That's why I involved myself with ICT. But at that point of time, very few women actually think of doing it. You can say thinking of out of the box. When I was there, there were no one. So that is the key point of my success, because besides that, our government consider ICT sector as a third sector, and I got a lot of support like tax exemption, cash incentive, that kind of thing. When government brought these things for ICT sector, at that time I am an entrepreneur, established entrepreneur, so I got those supports as well. So that's why I said when I joined ICT sector, there were no opportunity actually, no one was there. But my work and my interest actually make it possible, and gradually the sector has grown this way. And as I said, my challenges or our challenges as women, access to finance, which actually our government is working on for women. They have created a lot of loan facilities, but still it's not applicable for women because the process is not very easy. We have to simplify that process. But if you ask me for one action, then I will ask for access to market. And access to why I'm saying that our women entrepreneurs are not visible at all. We have to make them visible globally. And they have the skill sets, they have their setup, they are working hard, but buyers cannot reach them. So if we can make even an online portal to visible our women entrepreneur skill set, that would be very good for us, I think.
Thank you. So SHETRADES.com, watch that space, SHETRADES.com/Commonwealth. Watch that space, because this is where we will put profiles of women-owned businesses so that they become visible to markets. Your dreams are going to come true, Farhana.
Thank you so much.
Briefly, so that we can interact a bit with the room. SHETRADES launched in Nigeria in July 2016. Tell us a little bit about progress so far, and where would you like to insist or invest for the future?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, we were a major SHETRADES partner. We had a very big launch. We thank the ITC and the executive director for coming. Based on the importance we put on it, if you remember our ranchers, we had the wife of the president, the wife of the vice president, the wife of the speaker, top women business. Everybody was present at that. So we've launched it. We formed women clusters on many of those sectors I told you in our zero-way plan. We have women clusters in hibiscus, sesame, cotton, moringa, and shea butter. And shea butter is very big to us because Nigeria is the largest producer of shea butter in the world. We've conducted nationwide SHETRADES sensitization. We're doing a digital marketing workshops. We're now earmarking funds because we're an incentive agency under our Export Development Fund for women-owned businesses to apply and get for. We're now also creating and managing a data website of 4,000 women-owned businesses in partnership with the ITC. More than that, for it to be sustainable, we're also now working through the wife of the president, pushing the National Assembly to pursue legislation for the federal government procurement from women-owned businesses. Government is still the largest procurement agency in Nigeria, but so we want them now to procure from women. Now, let me end this on a personal note. My grandmother was a big entrepreneur, and she sent my late grandmother sent my late grandfather to school to study law in England. Yeah, she was paying, financing throughout. Yeah, he became the premier of the then Western region. Everything based on his wife financing him. My mother as well. She was #1 fashion designer in Nigeria. She won the prize, and she's been running her own business since, employing people. So that is my background in women entrepreneurship. And now, I have 2 daughters, and I tell them, look, I'm not your role model. Your role model is your great-grandmother, your grandmother, your aunties that are doing things. And I'm so glad that they've taken to that, and my daughter has just developed what she called a 3-dimensional framework for women to live. And she says, 1, that 3 critical pillars she has identified. Your earning dimension. This is where you focus in making money through business or whatever means you choose. 2, your dreaming dimension. This is fulfilling your individual calling by discovering your natural gifts and talents. And then lastly, your sharing dimension. This is how you give back to your communities by adding value to the people around you. And she says a combination of that. Yeah. So I told her, I'm speaking at the SHETRADES, Commonwealth SHETRADES on women entrepreneurship, that go onto the website, look at SHETRADES, and tell me what you think. And this is what it is. So I'm going to hand it over to her, and she's at the end of the program. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's earn, dream, share.
Yeah.
It's great. Is a great way to describe it. Now, floor is to you. We're going to take 3 short questions. Please tell us who you are and to whom you are addressing the question. And then, so the lady over there, the lady over here, the lady over here.
Hi. My name is Esther Gatuma from Washington, D.C. I'm here for Women of Paradise and the Oprah Winfrey Show Season 25 Heroes. So I have a question, and I'm very much concerned about the state of affairs when it comes to accessing funds and credit for women, specifically in the Commonwealth. But you realize that the problems that we're addressing today are not the same problems that we addressed many years ago. Mm-hmm. The problems have advanced. Yeah. So what is it that any of you, I cannot pick one person to answer this question, what have you changed in your approach, given that we have technology also that is influencing and exacerbating some of these problems? We have social media that has totally become, I don't want to call it a menace. It's not useful sometimes. It's even affecting elections in different countries. So I just want one of you to give us a message that shows relevance, a futuristic, measurable component of the goals that you have probably adjusted given that the issues that women are facing now in terms of accessing credits have changed? I mean, it's just morphed into something else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lady over there.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Yentel Williams, and I'm an international trade consultant and the director of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Young Professionals Network. My question is to the representative from Unilever. You described some of the great work you're doing with the people you work with at Unilever. However, I have a question regarding what are you doing to work with the broader scope of entrepreneurs, the young women, the micro enterprises, the small and medium enterprises within the broader system, so the national economy within which you work, the regional economy within which you work. We work across 79 African, Caribbean and Pacific states. I just got back from Nairobi, where I'm very pleased to say that there the government has legislation whereby 30% of public procurement goes to youth-led businesses. I think across the Commonwealth we have many great examples of initiatives that we can take, and business also has to be leading with government to make this happen. So I wonder, have you got some of those best practices beyond the Unilever example, but within the national and regional ecosystems within which you work?
Okay, thank you so much. Lady over here. And then the last one will go there.
Hi, I'm Claudia from Care International. Thank you to you all for a very interesting discussion. I think we've all agreed that women's inclusion in the formal economy is extremely important to women's economic empowerment, and I don't like bringing it back to maybe the more negative aspects of some of the discussions, but there are considerable barriers to women doing that, and even when women are inside the formal economy, there are significant barriers, and Rebecca, you touched upon violence against women as one of those. Yeah. And I think, you know, we're still 6 months on from #MeToo. Yeah. Violence and harassment in the workplace is on the tip of everyone's tongues, and 40 to 50% of women worldwide have experienced harassment in the workplace, which is why it's slightly disappointing that only 17 out of 53 Commonwealth states have supported the ILO's potential convention on ending harassment and violence in the workplace. I think we've all agreed here that it's time for the Commonwealth to step up, that it's time for the Commonwealth to help women and girls realise their full potential. So I would like to know if we can all agree to support the ILO Convention on the 28th of May at the International Labour Conference.
Thank you. And the last question over there. Last question over there. We're going to cut it here, but this conversation continues. You shouldn't worry.
Thank you. This is Preeti Chakraborty from Bangladesh. So first of all, I want to thank our Farhana. I feel proud for Farhana as she is in here. She is talking to the whole audience. Now, my question is, always we feel and we think and we talk the women entrepreneurs will be the small entrepreneurs, macro level entrepreneurs. They will not work as macro level entrepreneurs. Why? Can't we think the women entrepreneurs as the macro level entrepreneurs? Okay. And from this forum, from Commonwealth Forum, how we feel, how we grow as a macro level entrepreneur for the women entrepreneur. So we should work for it. And my wish that from this forum, from this forum, this Commonwealth Forum, women should think bigger. They are not the small micro-level entrepreneur only. We want to grow further, and we want to be macro-level entrepreneur. So where is the connectivity? How the women can grow as a macro-level entrepreneur? So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I know that there are a million questions we could put to the panel. Again, we can continue this conversation. We will open and the SHETRADES a forum for discussion where we can continue to engage. For now, I have Kamina that has a group of ministers of a small state waiting for her to join them, and I really thank you for having been here with us and sharing your thoughts. I give you the floor first before the others, and then
Sure, I'm grateful. And let Rebecca me also just say thank you very much for having had me on the panel. It's my honor to have been here sharing the space with all of you and learning from all of you as we give our different perspectives this morning. I'll just touch on the violence question very quickly before I go, and I'm glad you raised it because it's one of the things that I think is always put aside in the economic empowerment discussion. There is a whole psychosocial impact on society that is derived from violence and how that impacts your ability to self-empower and self-actualize. It's almost one of the fundamental pillars that you have to get rid of before you achieve some of the other pillars, the other layers. So I think it's very important. I'm glad you raised it. Jamaica, I can't speak specifically to that ILO convention now. I'd have to check with my colleague minister who's responsible for gender, but what I can say is that our sexual harassment bill is to be tabled in Parliament. It's actually being reviewed by Cabinet now, so it goes through Legislative Committee, etc. And we have been advocating for the implementation of sexual harassment policies pending the implementation of the law, because of course you have to sensitize people to change how you think about things, because there's a grand cultural gap between what may be a strong Me Too movement in some countries and what is perhaps perceived as regular behavior in others, and how you help move society towards where you need them to be in terms of understanding, and also what's reasonable and implementable, so that you don't implement a law or rather pass a law that's implemented in the breach. It's a cultural process and a consultative process. So we are very much working on that. We are reviewing, there's a joint select committee in Parliament that's reviewing our Domestic Violence Act, or Offences Against the Persons Act, or Child Care and Protection Act, and the Act for Sexual Offences Act, to address the spectrum, the broad spectrum of violence against women, children, and persons living with disabilities. So there's as an administration, we have a strong intention, and we're taking strong action to make the institutional changes that are necessary, even as we consult and try and sensitize the public so that we don't legislate in vain. So I thank you again for raising the question, because it's an important part of the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamina. Thank you so much. And we'll let you go now. Briefly, Rebecca, and then I'll give the final word to Isadora.
Yeah, so where to start on the Entrepreneurs and Social Enterprise?
I'll give you the final.
For us, I think it's important that we start with our own company, because that's obviously where we can have the biggest influence. So the programs like Transformer, perhaps I didn't make this clear enough, we take applications from entrepreneurs around the world to join that program and to be a part of it. We choose on that particular program thematic areas around wash and energy to start with a gender lens on it, because they're areas where we have a lot that we can contribute to that overall debate. We also run a global program with the University of Cambridge called the Young Entrepreneurs Award, which is open, no thematic area in particular, but open to young people under the age of 35. We did it last year, particularly around sustainable businesses and looking at innovative solutions to help with sustainable business. We have a group called The Foundry, which is particularly focused on startup tech, and again, an area where women particularly are really underrepresented. There is when you look at the venture cap investments in tech firms that are led by women, they're minimal. So lots of work around new apps and digital applications, etc. And then I think around things like patient capital. So we partner with both Acumen and Ashoka, investing in social enterprises, more on the supply chain side. So for example, we just invested in a company called Burn in Kenya that are providing clean cook stoves. There's a whole host of different things that we're looking at there. And I think probably the last area is through our brands. So particularly brands like Ben & Jerry's, where we really actively seek out much smaller suppliers, and we look at, and often it's the story and the social story behind that is something that we really try and promote through the way that we talk about the brand. But what we do in all the countries that we're operating in, and we're in pretty much every country in the world, is work with the government to look at what kind of other enterprise opportunity and youth education programs are there. And I think not always necessarily formal education programs, but often very much focused on some of the softer skills. You know, for example, in India and Bangladesh, we're working with Rin, one of our laundry brands, on a skills academy for young people. So just teaching them and encouraging the general skills that they need to apply for jobs, around presentation skills, around interview techniques. And there's a whole range of different things that groups like the World Economic Forum are doing, UN Global Compact, around investing in young people. But would happily pick it up with you at a later point. But thank you for raising it, because I think the more that we collectively invest in young people and skills generation, it's so vital for the economy. And with automation, on developing, which is a great thing, embrace technology, but equally I'm very mindful of the fact that it also threatens some jobs. So it's something that I know is very important to ministers of employment.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let me give the final word to Isatu, our.
Well, thank you very much. I think all the questions that were raised and the issues that were raised are quite real in terms of issues of women and the economy, addressing poverty, violence against women. But what I want to just say is that there is great hope. We have come a long way. We have come a long way. A lot has been done. The fact that we were able to raise the agency of women and raise the issues in itself, bringing it to the development platform, validates who they are, and also try to recognize the fact that there are marginalizations, there are inequalities, and there are issues that are taken for granted in itself is one step forward. It also raises the consciousness of the people themselves to know that there is need to take responsibility to ensure that 51% of the world's population needs to be given the right attention, and they need to be validated for the work and their contribution within the economy. So what needs to be done could be context-specific, could be intergenerational, it could be intragenerational, it could also take what we call innovative approaches using feminist lens, feminist strategies, and innovative feminist ways of dealing with it. And here you have the SHETRADES phenomenon coming up now. You also understand that the statistics itself, gender statistics, has been generated now. Before, there were no gender statistics with regards to the contributions of women in anything. Now you can have disaggregated statistics where women's contributions are being delineated, and therefore that gives you an insight in policy analysis to be able to come up with informed programs and processes. The other thing I wanted to say is that there are quite a number of initiatives that are going on in various countries. What needs to be done is to bring them to the platform and to visibilize them. That's why you need that collective synergy. You need that body. For example, in the Gambia, we are now anticipating launching our SHETRADES very soon. So I want to just tell you that we are ready for it now. And other initiatives that are coming from other places. But because they do not have the platform for that visibilization, then it becomes lost in whatever we do. So they need to have a portal. ICT is very key. Sharing information is another one, and also having a collective bargaining point where we could talk. I am suggesting that within my country, for example, I know that I just wanted to share with you, I didn't have time to read my document, but I had come up with some hopes after analyzing the situation, that looking at women, there must also be another issue that we have to be sensitive to. Women are not common species. We are women, yes, but we have our specificities, we have our differences, and we have our commonalities. If we understand that framework in which we negotiate women's issues, then it will help us to program effectively in our various countries and globally. The case of rural women, for example, in the Gambia, you cannot talk about agriculture without giving the agency to rural women. Who are these silent heroines producing the crops, whose labor is taken for granted, who are using back-breaking work? They don't have access to the mechanized farming tools. When value is added to agriculture, they lose the power from land to machines to everything. That injustice and inequality should be looked upon, and there must be programs specifically addressing that. You come to a trade. African woman has always been a trader. Like he's giving a very good example of the grandmother. Every African family has a story to tell you. A lot of industries, African industries, started from the mother's kitchen or from the backyard. And now it grows. When it gets to a particular point, it's no longer in their hands. It is taken away. Or it is not, there is another front, not the woman's front. So these are the issues that we have to note, and things are changing, because in the Gambia, we have quite a number of women who are now going into e-commerce. A lot of them are there, but of course there are gender gaps. all we need to do is to scale up. Do your research, make a pilot project. Once there is a result, make sure that you sort of blow it up. And that's why it is important. That's why Unilever and other companies that are there could be. How are we going to help those women have access to the supermarkets in our countries first, before you think about the regional chains? Are we, when they package or when they are trained to add value to their products, do they have access to the supermarkets within the countries? These are, you start from somewhere and then move on. So there is a gross systematic inequality starting from our homes to the international level. When we come to this type of meetings, we bring in the right discourses. We discuss it, but in practicality, how does it happen? These are some of the issues. My 30 years of grassroots activism, as a young girl coming from a very modest and rural background, growing to the level I am today, I have worked and devoted myself in helping our parents, helping our sisters, helping myself and others to move. But what I notice is that when things fail, when the state fails, women are the answers. When there is success, what they have done is taken away from them. So the SHETRADES for me is something that I'm looking up to and hope that we will try to use innovative ways, and I am coming up with models, maybe when we engage, to see how best we can make things happen for women so that it could be used as a concrete result for whatever we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we've come to the end of this session. We have, as we've been reminded, have not come to the end of our task. But the good news is that we have a room full of people that, leaving this event, will go out there and fight this corner. Thank you very much for being here with us, and continue this conversation, #SheTrades. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is now a 10-minute session. If you would like to stay, please stay. If you'd like to leave, please leave the room quickly and quietly. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to request that you please take your seats as we have a 10-minute launch. If you please take your seats, we will only borrow 10 minutes of your time before refreshments. You can stretch. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. May I please ask that you take your seats. If you're networking already, please move to the networking lounge. We have a 10-minute session to launch a paper, a report. Ushers, please help. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Please take your seats. If you'd like to join this session, please take your seats. We're trying to catch up with time because we have gone over our time. May I please ask once more time, could you please take your seats if you're remaining in the room for this 10-minute session? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite the Honorable Minister Fayaz Sadiq Koya, Minister of Industry, Trade and Tourism of Fiji. Also, if his permanent secretary is in the room, Could you please join your minister here at the front? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon again. We are here at this session. You've just had fabulous time with the previous session, which focused on inclusive economic empowerment. I hope you are empowered this afternoon as we continue with this. At the Commonwealth Secretariat, we have been giving much thought to how economic growth and development can be promoted and encouraged in a way that is responsible and sustainable. We have thought about the connections within the Commonwealth family and the Commonwealth family, whether you're small or you're big, as you've heard this morning, how those can be encouraged and strengthened to support development. We have also been thinking about how we can leverage the diaspora networks, which many of us in this room are from a diaspora population. We realized, however, that we needed a better understanding of the diaspora communities and their interest in the growth and development of their home countries. Have you used Western Union or MoneyGram recently? Thank you. Recognizing the gap in information, the Commonwealth Secretariat undertook a flagship diaspora investor survey. Over 5 months, we reached out to the diaspora communities of 6 member countries of the Commonwealth. These were Bangladesh, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Jamaica, and Fiji. We were there to assess the demand from diasporas to invest in their country of origin. These countries represent a cross-section of the Commonwealth's diverse membership that have had high remittance inflows. Is that new? High remittance inflows, and we're actively pursuing initiatives to leverage diaspora finance. Today, we are very pleased to be here, launching the results of the survey in the report, which is now going to be known as Understanding the Investment Potential of the Commonwealth Diaspora. It is my pleasure this afternoon to invite the Honorable Fayaz Siddiq Koya, Minister of Industry, Trade and Tourism of Fiji, to bring brief remarks and officially launch the report. Minister Koya is a barrister and solicitor by profession, having earned a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Wolverhampton in the UK and a Diploma in Legal Practice from the University of Tasmania in Australia. In 2014, he was elected to serve as a Member of Parliament in Fiji and was appointed as Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism. He is passionate about engaging the Fijian diaspora and supporting the Commonwealth family. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Minister Koya.
The members of the Commonwealth family, ladies and gentlemen, Bula Vinaka, and a very good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon, to be part of the launch of a very important survey report. The report will assist all Commonwealth countries, especially the small island states, to have a better understanding of the diaspora investment aspirations. I'd firstly like to thank the Commonwealth Secretariat for including Fiji in the survey with Bangladesh, Ghana, Jamaica, Kenya, and Nigeria. The inclusion of Fiji provides a different dynamic to the survey as we represent the small island states in a region that has varied levels of development and countries that are one of the most isolated countries in the world. The survey, ladies and gentlemen, has tried to fill the information gap that we've had thus far on diaspora interests in savings and investments. The survey results indicate that the Commonwealth diaspora is highly engaged with their countries of origin, and many send support in various forms, mostly remittances. Ladies and gentlemen, the Fijian economy is largely driven by the services sector, with tourism being the largest contributor to the Fijian economy, and following tourism, remittances is the next largest contributor to the Fijian GDP. Remittances mainly from the Fijian diaspora that is living and working abroad, but continue to support their families in Fiji. And therefore, the results of the survey provide a true picture of what is actually happening on the ground. However, the true potential of diaspora investments is yet to be realized. In terms of attracting diaspora investors, Fiji has introduced various policies, initiatives, and incentives that create an environment for the diaspora to invest in Fiji. For example, dual citizenship to entice Fijians who are residing in a foreign land to come back to Fiji and invest as a local rather than as a foreigner. The findings of the survey are very timely, as the Fijian government can capitalize on the information to improve the policies, the initiatives, and incentives for our diaspora investors. The main intention of the survey, ladies and gentlemen, was to generate a robust, evidence-based understanding of how to increase diaspora investments and savings amongst the Commonwealth countries. Therefore, the survey has actually assisted countries to understand what the diaspora feels, that the deterrence for them with respect to investment in their country of origin. And whilst the respondents have identified what the specific country issues are, it is also evident that there is a lack of understanding of how countries have evolved over time. Hence, there is a need for the Commonwealth countries to utilize their missions in the UK and also the Commonwealth Secretariat to disseminate information on the major reforms that have taken place in their country, especially in relation to investments. The diaspora can be a huge asset for the development of the countries and to fill the gaps that are present in terms of expertise. They are a channel through which not only finance flows, but also much needed tacit knowledge can flow. The diaspora is a potential source of opportunities for trade, for investment, for innovation, and for professional networks that home countries depend on. Fiji looks forward to closely working with the Secretariat to develop further initiatives that are targeted towards the diaspora, including the use of the Diaspora Investment Toolkit. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commonwealth has a lot to offer each other, and we look towards the Secretariat to facilitating peer learning for knowledge and expertise exchanges. At this juncture also, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the co-chairs, His Excellency Jitoko Tikolevu, Fijian High Commissioner to the UK, Dr. Reginald Darius, Professor Trivedi, the former and current Director of Economics, Youth and Sustainable Development at the Commonwealth Secretariat, for their excellent stewardship of the Research Steering Committee. The committee provided the strategic oversight of the implementation of the particular survey. And we also acknowledge the Fijian and other Commonwealth diaspora living in the UK who have been part of the survey. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point I also have the great pleasure in launching the Understanding the Investment Potential of the Commonwealth Diaspora, the results of the Commonwealth Diaspora Investment Survey. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Koya. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. And that brings us to the end of this session. Enjoy your tea.